Hey everybody, my name is Alan Elam from SOARescue, and we're here in the warehouse today to talk about some different kit options that we have on the website. We've had people emailing and calling in, and we just wanted to take a minute to explain what the different kit options are we have on the website right now, dive into some specifics, so that way people can help watch this video and pick out what they need for their personal kit and personal needs for themselves. So the first thing we want to do though is talk about counterfeit tourniquets and counterfeit products in general. None of the products that we have here in our warehouse will ever be counterfeit. The only time we'll even entertain having a counterfeit product is if we demonstrate it in one of our classes so we can show people what to look out for. So either you might end up with one of these as a gift, you might see one that a buddy gets and you're peeking through his kit to see what he's got in it, or if you see him pop up on Amazon, that's where a lot of these counterfeit products end up. And so it's a good idea have a little bit of knowledge on what to look for. So the first thing that you'll see is the back of these tourniquets, and specifically talking about today the cat tourniquet, because these are probably the most frequently knocked off or counterfeit tourniquets out there. So these tourniquets that are counterfeit have nothing on the back on this little plastic plate. We'll take a look at one of our kits that has a real legitimate tourniquet in it, and we look at the back. These tourniquets very clearly say cat right at the very top. And they've got some information on from the manufacturer there towards the bottom. The other thing that you'll see on these tourniquets, which is quite important to how they operate, is you'll see a little band here that the windlass will twist and tighten up. And on a real tourniquet, that band goes all the way around the tourniquet itself. In some of these counterfeit tourniquets, what you'll see is just a few inches past this plastic plate, you'll see a series of radio frequency welds or RF welds. And that's where this band actually stops. And so what ends up happening is as you tighten this band down, you're putting a whole lot of pressure right here on this tourniquet where these weaker RF welds have been completed. So what ends up happening is these bands end up breaking. And so now you've got a tourniquet that's of no use whatsoever because the main mechanism, really the only mechanism that's going to tighten it down, is now not functional. When we look at these RF welds on a real tourniquet versus a fake tourniquet, you can see they're almost 4 times the size when you look at them up close. So these are a lot more significant of a weld than these. So the other thing that you'll notice on some of these tourniquets is the stitching's done a little bit differently, and obviously they're inferior products. So the stitching isn't going to be quite as robust, and so these can start to break apart after they've got some pressure on them. So a lot of these inferior cat tourniquets ended up overseas in the conflict. And talking to one mech that was there, they had a box of 1,000 that were delivered, these fake tourniquets, and out of those 1,000, each one they started to deploy was breaking before they could get the patient taken care of. So they had a 100% failure rate. When we look at these tourniquets that are military tested with a ton of research behind them, these don't fail. And so that's why we put them in our kits. You know, if we're taking care of our family, this is what we pick. We wouldn't pick something on Amazon just to save a few dollars. We're taking care of our friends and family. We're taking care of our patients out in the field. When you see an ambulance deploy out in the street, this is the tourniquet that's going to end up being on it, and not this one off of Amazon. So we'll take this one, toss it aside for a bit because we don't need to worry about it anymore, and we'll put this real tourniquet back into the kit. So when we talk about our classes that I mentioned a little bit ago, we teach a class called Tactical Combat Casualty Care, or TCCC for short. One of the components of that class is the 3 preventable causes of death and trauma. And the first is massive extremity hemorrhage. The second is airway compromise. And the third is tension pneumothorax. So not to dig in too deep into what all that means, because that's really a 2-day class, we wanted to kind of share that information because that's what guides the principles on how we develop these kits. And so when we look at the components here, that's what we're picking to put into these kits to make sure we can take care of those issues and types of trauma immediately. So out of all these kit options that we'll talk about today, these are the kits that you'll see in nylon pouches on our website, because we also have our MedMag series, which are a fantastic set of kits. Take a peek at those if you're interested. But in these different types of pouches, to help you pick today, the first one we're going to cover is our SOARfac. And so again, we talk about the 3 preventable causes of death, the first one being massive extremity hemorrhage. And this kit is really designed to take care of that problem as quickly as possible. So as we take a look at how this pouch is designed, it's got 2 zippers. So if I need to access just part of the kit, I can unzip one, or it's got this pull tab at the top. So if I need to rip through both zippers simultaneously, I can rip that down, and now I've got my whole entire kit to deploy out. You'll see the first thing, which is bright, easily visible, is this red pull tab. So if this thing is mounted behind a headrest or somewhere else in a vehicle, if it's mounted on somebody's plate carrier, I can grab this and it pulls away from the rest of the kit. So now I can deploy out just the medical components and leave the pouch itself wherever it was placed. When we take a look at these, the first thing that I'm going to want to do as I start to take care of a patient is put some gloves on. So that's first and foremost the number one thing that we put in all of our kits. But we've got that right here. Next thing, as we talked about that trauma, we might need to be able to get access to the patient's injury, so we've got a pair of shears here too to be able to dig a little bit deeper and find out where that patient was injured. Next, after that, we talk about extremity hemorrhage, and the most definitive way to take care of that is with a tourniquet. So again, all of our tourniquets have research backing. Each one of these, they've got hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of testing to make sure these are going to work every time without fail. So those are the only types of tourniquets we put in these kits. If somebody's injured, but maybe it's not bleeding quite so severely, we've got a bandage to be able to take care of that patient and bandage their arm or leg or whatever limb they have that's bleeding. And then one of the things that we want to be concerned about afterwards when we've got our patient is hypothermia. So we want to bundle that patient up because they've lost some blood, they've probably lost some heat too. We want to keep them warm to prevent any other problems from cascading down this pathway, so we can wrap them up in that foil blanket and take care of the patient. Last but not least, we've got two components left. So we've got some tape if we need to secure anything in place. If anything's getting a little loose, we've got some tape there. A lot of times you'll see this used with medics that are out in the street is actually taking down some notes. So we've got a Sharpie to go along with that. So if you've got your patient and get some medical history from them, or need to write down treatments or some quick vital signs, you can take some notes with this and you can keep track of those things before an ambulance crew arrives or the fire department. Sometimes you'll see, even if you've got a video of an incident that happened in the news, you might see a flight medic or an ambulance provider there with a strip of tape on their leg, and that's where they're just getting prepared for that trauma patient and taking some notes. So we've got that there. Nice compact kit. Again, that's the smallest in the lineup. That's our SOARescue. So as we dive a little bit deeper, the next one we've got is our major trauma kit. So we talked about massive extremity hemorrhage, but we also have airway compromise and tension pneumothorax. Those are other two components that we have to be aware of and start to take care of. So as we open this guy up, we can see again some similar components to what we just talked about. We've got our tourniquet, different styles, different colors, but these are always legitimate, authentic tourniquets that we've placed in all of our kits. We've also got a bandage here. Again, if a patient's injured, but maybe it's not bleeding so severely, we've got a bandage to take care of that. We also now, again, to kind of add to your toolbox, we've got a hemostatic agent in this kit for you to be able to wound pack if needed and take care of something that maybe doesn't have the ability to get a tourniquet, but now you've got something that's a little bit closer into the core of the body where you might have to wound pack that injury, but you can still get the bleeding stopped successfully with one of these. After that, again, we talked about two other types of trauma. The first is that airway compromise. So we have a nasopharyngeal airway, nasal airway for you to place in your patient. We also talked about tension pneumothorax. So we've got the Hyphen Compact Twin Pack here. That's a fantastic tool because it comes with two chest seals here, one on each side, for you to be able to take care of an entrance and an exit wound simultaneously. Sometimes maybe if you've got a patient with two wounds just in general, you can take care of that on the torso. After we've taken care of that patient, we need to cover them up with our foil blanket to prevent hypothermia. And that, in the grand scheme of things, kind of rounds out those major problems that we can take care of very quickly out in the field. On top of that, a couple other components that we've talked about with our kits is we've got a pair of shears here, boom, to be able to get access to that patient's injuries. We've got our tape, again, if we need to secure or take some notes. And then to take notes, we've got that Sharpie tucked in there, perfect. And last but not least, we always want to make sure we're wearing those gloves. So that rounds out the major trauma kit and all the different options there. Next, we'll move into our comprehensive medical kit. This one kind of expands just a little bit beyond trauma. We'll show that component in just a minute. But as we deploy this kit, we've got a couple options for it to rapidly deploy it. So it's got this clip here at the top, and this pulls away from the panel So if we've got this panel mounted somewhere, again, just like our other kit, in a vehicle, somewhere else that's important, easy to get to, on a wall even, we can pull this and deploy it to now get those medical components closer to the patient from wherever it was securely mounted. Once we dive into the kit itself, we've got 2 tourniquet pouches on the outside. So if you've got a massive extremity hemorrhage, somebody that's severely injured, or even deploying into a little bit larger scene where you've got multiple patients, we've now got 2 tourniquets instead of just the one for us to be able to take care of multiple injuries or patients. And then now we dive into the interior of the kit itself. Folds out just like our major trauma kit, and now we've got access to the rest of the components very easily. For us on the massive extremity hemorrhage side, if we've got a patient that's not bleeding quite as much, we've got our bandage, but now we've got some extra options when it comes to wound packing. We've got regular sterile gauze, and we also have a hemostatic gauze tucked in here as well for you to now be able to pick which one you think you need in the moment. Gives you a little bit more versatility. We talked about some of those other types of injuries. So we've got a nasopharyngeal airway or nasal airway here again, just to be able to take care of those airway compromise issues. We've also got our hyphen compact twin chest seal for us to be able to take care of a tension pneumothorax. So next we've got a needle for decompression here. So you'll see the box for medical device authorization. That's for those people that can deploy these if you can't, but you'd still like this kit. We've got an option without the needle, so you'll just have to select that one. Last but not least, we've already talked about keeping our patients warm, so we've got our foil blanket here to prevent hypothermia. We've also got, instead of just 1 pair of gloves now, we've got multiple, so we've got 3 pairs of gloves in this kit. And then last but not least, we've got our pill pack from the MedMag series. This pack is fantastic because it's got a variety of different over-the-counter medications for us to deploy out to those patients that have something going on but doesn't need a tourniquet per se. When we think about things operationally, somebody with a headache or somebody with GI issues, those can be just as important or just as significant as somebody that needs a tourniquet. If I've got somebody that's getting dehydrated out in the woods because they've got some type of GI problem, I need to treat that patient because them getting dehydrated could be just as significant out in the woods as needing a tourniquet. This has a variety of over-the-counter medications to be able to treat those medical problems, including things like Benadryl, burn cream, multi-system cold, just some other odds and ends for you to be able to really make sure that your kit is complete from A to Z, from the medical side or from the trauma side. So take a look at this. This can also be purchased individually on the website. It's a fantastic component for your kit, and it's something that's actually pretty cheap, so you can add a wide variety of versatility to your kit from a pretty small footprint. We've talked about a wide variety of kits here. We'll go over some larger kits in the next video where we talk about some team aid bags for different components that you might need or a wider variety of needs that you might have. But thanks for joining us for the first video here today. We'll toss this thing aside now, don't need it anymore. At this point, no point in talking about that anymore. So we'll take this one, toss it aside for a bit because we don't need to worry about it anymore.